I would say it's always best effort. So we learn based on the knowledge that we have, and when we need to adapt our knowledge, we do our best effort to adapt it. Our investment in this area is pretty good, and we have people who do ongoing maintenance and continuously look at model improvements.
Welcome to Screaming in the Cloud. I'm Corey Quinn, and I am at long last thrilled to notice that something in this world exists that I've wanted to exist for a very long time, but we'll get into that. Omri Sass has been at Datadog for something like 6 years now. Omri, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
This episode is sponsored in part by my day job, Duck Bill. Do you have a horrifying AWS bill? That can mean a lot of things. Predicting what it's going to be, determining what it should be, negotiating your next long-term contract with AWS, or just figuring out why it increasingly resembles a phone number, but nobody seems to quite know why that is. To learn more, visit duckbillhq.com. Remember, you can't duck the Duck Bill bill, which my CEO reliably informs me is absolutely not our slogan.
So you are apparently the mastermind, as it were, behind the recently launched updog.ai. So forgive me, what's Updog?
I was expecting the conversation to start like that, and I have to say it's definitely not me being the mastermind there. I joined Datadog, like you said, about 6 years ago. This thing has been in the making, some folks would say even before that. I'm happy to share a bit of the history later. But I joined the Applied AI group here at Datadog a couple of months ago while this project was already ongoing. So I do have to give credit where credit is due. We have an amazing Applied AI folks, group of data scientists, engineers, product manager who's this has been his passion for quite a while. And so I'm not the mastermind. I'm just the pretty face.
And it's an impressive beard, I will say. I'm envious I can't grow one myself. For those who may not be aware of the beautiful thing that is Updog, how do you describe it?
So Updog is effectively down detector. So if you're familiar with that, it's a way of making sure that very common SaaS providers are actually up. But Updog is powered by telemetry of people who actually use these providers. It's not a test against all their APIs or anything like that.
It's also not user reported like Down Detector tends to be. And I have to say, it was awfully considerate of you to the day that we were recording this. Most of the morning, Cloudflare has taken significant outages. In fact, right now, as we speak, there's a banner at the top of updog.ai. Cloudflare is reporting an outage right now. Updog is not detecting it as it is on API endpoints that are not watched today. We are working on adding those API endpoints to our watch list. Now, this sounds like a no-brainer. I have been asking various monitoring and observability companies for this since I was a young sysadmin, because when suddenly your website no longer serves web, your big question is it my crappy code? Or is it a global issue that is affecting everyone? And it's not because whose throat do I choke here? It's what do I do to get this thing back up? Because if it's a major provider that has just gone down, there are very few code changes you are going to make on your side that'll bring the site back up. And in fact, you could conceivably take it from a working state to a non-working state, and now you have two problems. Conversely, if everything else is reporting fine, maybe look at what's going on in your specific environment. For those who have not lived in the trenches of 3 a.m. pages, that's a huge deal. It's effectively bifurcating the world in two.
That is precisely right. And I'll say one of the biggest reasons that it took so long, at least for us to get there, is the understanding that we can't just test all of these endpoints, right? There's a reason, like you mentioned, Down Detector uses user reports. If we were to run synthetic tests, for example, against all of these endpoints ourselves, if we report something as down, we now need to verify that the thing being down is the actual website and not our testing that is no longer correct.
And it's worse than that, because you take a look at take AWS, as I often am forced to do. And is EC2 working in US East 1? That's over 100 data center facilities. It's not at that scale. It's not a question of is it down? It's a question of how down is it? You can have 100 customers there, and 5 are saying things are terrific, and 5 are saying that they're terrible, and the rest are at varying degrees between those 2 points. Just because it's blind blind people trying to describe an elephant by touch.
That is exactly right. And what you just described is the realization that we had about the asymmetry of data. And I rest assured that's probably the word with the most syllables I'm going to use today. That's above my IQ grade. But what you just described is exactly the realization that we had about the asymmetry of data. We have more data than any individual one of our customers, i.e., we have all of the blind people touching the elephant at the same time and not needing to describe it, right? We have the sense of touch for all of these folks. And what we do is actually looking at this data in aggregate and using it to try and understand whether all of these endpoints are up or down. Now, let me try to make that slightly more real. When we started going along this journey, our realization was that when EC2 is down, that's actually the specific example. When EC2 was down, the load on our Watchdog backend, Watchdog is our machine learning anomaly detector, increases significantly because everyone has a higher error rate and higher latencies and a drop in throughput. And so our backend had to compensate for that. And we saw a surge in processing power. So we were like, hey, we're not looking at customer data here. It is purely within our systems, but something is definitely going on in the real world. It's not a byproduct of anything that we're doing. It's not tied to any change that we've made. It's not anything, our systems are well functioning. And through investigating that, we had realized that it's actually tied to EC2. And then we started figuring out, wait, what are the most common things that people rely on that are observed with Datadog? And if you look at the updog.ai website today, that's also a really easy way to see what people use Datadog to monitor of their third-party dependencies, because it's just the top API endpoints that we observe.
I'm curious on some level, like effectively what I care about on this today, for example, there are a bunch of folks that wound up, I'm looking at this now, you're right, you don't have the Cloudflare endpoints themselves, but Aiden is first alphabetically. They took a dip earlier. AWS took a little bit of one that I'm sure, we'll get back to that in a minute or two. PayPal was down the drain. OpenAI had a bunch of issues. X is probably the worst of all of these graphs as I look at that, formerly known as Twitter. And great, this is a high level approach to this is what I care about. I almost want to take one level beyond this in either step, where just give me a traffic light. Is something globally being messed up right now? Like earlier today, when multiple services are all down in the dumps, that's what I want to see at the top. Just things globally are broken. Maybe it's a routing convergence issue where a lot of traffic between Oregon and Virginia no longer routes properly. Maybe it's that an auth provider is breaking and everything is out to lunch at that point. Like you almost just want to see at a high level with no scroll above the fold what's broken right now.
It's amazing that you should say that. I know some people who work on this. I can file the feature request for you.
Oh, honestly, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was either ask you on social media or ask you directly here in a scenario in which you cannot possibly say no.
Oh, I'm a mean bastard. But that one's easy for me because we're already working on it.
Because then you go the other direction where AWS right now, like each of these little cards are clickable. So I click on one and it talks about different services, DynamoDB, Elastic Load Balancing, Elasticsearch, so on and so forth. But I'm not seeing, at least at this level here or anywhere else for that matter, anything that breaks it down by region. And AWS is very good at regional isolation. So I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, it's, well, Stockholm is broken. What's going on? Yeah, there are 5 customers using that, give or take. I exaggerate. Fine, it'll be great. This is a big picture. What is going on, regardless of the intricacies of any given provider's endpoints? Then the other, it'd be nice to have more granularity, so I can see both sides.
We're working towards that as well. The first release of Updog, which I think was fortunate timing for us and for our users, is basically where we are today. We're investing heavily in improving granularity and coverage. So to your point about Cloudflare, we went with the most common APIs that people actually look at. If you look at some of the error messages that people have been posting on the airwaves formerly known as Twitter, you'll see that they mention a particular endpoint. I think it's challenge.cloudflare. That one's, as far as I know, not a documented API, and I'm sure I'm going to be corrected about that later, but it's not one that is commonly observed by our users. And so when we began this journey, we had to go off of available telemetry. Now that it's public, we can take feature requests, we can learn our lessons, we can improve everything that we're doing, which is exactly what we're going to do. Cloudflare in particular, we're working overtime to make sure that we account for that.
Yes, people accuse me of being an asshole when I say this, but I'm being completely sincere that I have trouble using a cloud provider where I do not understand how it breaks. And people think, oh, you think we're going to go down? Everything's going to go down. What I want to know is, what's that going to look like? Until I saw a number of AWS outages, I did not believe a lot of the assertions they made about hard region separation, because we did see cascading issues in the early days. It turns out what those were is, oh, maybe if you're running everything in Virginia and it goes down, you're not the only person trying to spin up capacity in Oregon at the same time, and now you have a herd of elephants problem. Turns out your DR tests don't account for that.
Oh, yeah. And I think that there's a couple of famous stories about people who realized that they should do DR ahead of other people and basically beat the stampede so that their websites were up during one of these moments. And then everyone else came up and were like, hey, we're out of capacity. Like, what's going on? So there's a couple of like famous stories like that through history. And I'll just say the example that you just gave, I think, is one that AWS is, that they've told this story quite a bit. And regionally today, I think makes sense. But even if you look at the US East 1 outage from a couple of weeks ago, a lot of the managed services were down, not necessarily because the service itself was down or, I'm not involved, I wasn't there. But my understanding there was DynamoDB was part of the services that were directly impacted, and a lot of their other managed services use Dynamo under the hood. So there's the cascading failure would happen, even if it's not cascading regionally, it cascades logically between the different services, and they have so many of them. So like, who's to know now, but we now have this information. We can use that and learn and adapt our models based on it.
What happens, again, I'm sure that you're going to be nibbled to death by ducks, and we will get there momentarily, but what happens when that learning becomes invalid? By what I mean is that when we remember the great S3 apocalypse of 2019, they completely rebuilt that service under the hood, which to my understanding is the third time since it launched in 2005 that they had done that. And everything that you've learned about how it failed back in 2019 is no longer valid, or at least an argument could be made in good faith that that is the case.
So for that, I would say it's always best effort. So we learn based on the knowledge that we have, and when we need to adapt our knowledge, we do our best effort to adapt it. Our investment in this area is pretty good, and like we have people who do ongoing maintenance and continuously look at model improvements. And so if we do something like that, hopefully we'll catch it. And I will say AWS in particular, but a lot of the providers that you would see on Updog, we have good relationships with them. We would hope that they come to us and tell us, hey, this thing that you're saying is incorrect, or you need to update this. Let's work on it together.
Yes, that is what I really want to get into here, because historically, when there have been issues, for a while I redirected gaslighting.me to the AWS official status page, because that's what it felt like. Back in the days of the green circles everywhere, I had a inline transformer that would downgrade things and be a lot more honest about how these things worked, because suddenly it would break in a region and it would take a while for them to update it. I understand that. It's a question of how do you determine the impact of an outage? How bad is it? When do you update the global status page versus not? And there are political considerations with this too. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But it gets back to that question of, is something on your side broken or is it on my side that's broken? And every time this has happened, they get so salty about down detector and anything like it, to the point where they've had VPs making publicly disparaging commentary about the approach. I'm not looking for the universal source of truth for things. That's not what I go to down detector for. I'm not pulling up downdetector.com to look for a root cause analysis to inform my learnings about things. Especially with that, it's just user reports. So I'm sure today they're trotting that line out already because there was an AWS blip on down detector, just because that is what people equate to the internet is broken with, which is sort of a symptom of their own success. They have been unreasonably annoyed by the existence of these things. but it's the first thing we look for. It's effectively putting a bit of data around anyone I know on Twitter, or the Tirefire formerly known as Twitter, noticing an issue here because suddenly things started breaking and I need to figure out again, is it me or is it you?
So there's two things that you said here. First of all, my go-to is dumpster fire, but I'll take tire fire. You know, I learned something new today.
Just like the bike shed is full of yaks in need of a shave.
Oh, wow. I'm taking that as a personal offense in my beard. The other thing that you said here, I think, is a realization that is starting to permeate across the industry. And that is that some people will use this to measure their SLAs, and they'll use this to go to their account teams and complain, demand credits and things like that. And that's valid reason for folks like AWS and other providers to maybe get a bit, add a bit of salt to their behavior. Maybe just a smidge. But the flip side is that more and more people come to the same realization that you come to. In the first moment of responding to an incident, when I'm still orienting myself in the 3 a.m. case, and it's always the worst one is always at 3 a.m., I'm groggy. I'm still orienting myself. I'm trying to figure out what action do I take right now. Hey, this thing is not even my problem. It comes from somewhere else, is one of the most important learnings that I can grab in a moment and not waste time on it, especially given that most people don't think to ask that unless they're very experienced and have gone through these types of issues. Because of that, we see more and more people who are actually interested in joining this. And when we launched, like on the day of launch, our legal team was basically like ready for all the inbound, salty, like angry emails. We didn't get any. But on the same week that we launched, we had a provider who's not represented on that page reach out to us and say, hey, we're Datadog customers. Like, why aren't we even up there? And we're like, oh, wow, come talk to us. Like,
we didn't know you broke.
Yeah, exactly.
This episode is sponsored by my own company, Duckbill. Having trouble with your AWS bill? Perhaps it's time to renegotiate a contract with them. Maybe you're just wondering how to predict what's going on in the wide world of AWS. Well, that's where Duckbill comes in to help. Remember, you can't duck the Duckbill bill, which I am reliably informed by my business partner is absolutely not our motto. To learn more, visit duckbillhq.com.
On some level, this is a little bit of, you must be at least this big to wind up appearing here. Like, this is, I know people are listening to this and they're going to take the wrong lesson away from it. This is not a marketing opportunity. I'm sorry, but it's not. This is systemically important providers. In fact, I could make an argument about some of the folks that are included. Is this really something that needs to be up here? Azure DevOps is an example. Yeah, if you're on Azure, you're used to it breaking periodically. I'm sorry, but it's true. We talk about not knowing if it's a global problem. There have been multiple occasions where I'm trying to get GitHub Actions to work properly, only to find out that it's GitHub Actions that's broken at the time.
Totally fair, but we still want to be able to reflect that to you.
But you also want to turn this into a scrolling Zoom forever. It would be interesting almost to have a frequency algorithm where when something is breaking right now, like you sort of have to hope that it's going to be alphabetically supreme. Whereas it would be nice to surface that and not have to scroll forever. Again, minor stuff. Part of the problem is you don't get a lot of opportunities to test this with wide-ranging global outages that impact multiple providers. So make hay while the sun shines.
Exactly. Like we got two in the since we released this in a very brief moment. And I say this, I might sound like I have a smile on my face. Obviously, like my heart goes out to all the people who have to actually respond to those incidents and to every one of their users who's having a rough day. But to your point, this is a golden opportunity to learn and to make sure that that knowledge is disseminated and available to everyone as equally as possible. Never let a good crisis go to waste. That is one of the first adages that I heard our CTO speak when I joined the company, and it's etched into the back of my brain.
And it's an important thing. Like you've overshot the thing that I was asking for, because as soon as you start getting too granular, you start to get into the works for me, not for you, and it descends into meaningless noise. All I really wanted was for a traffic light web page you folks put up there, or even a graph. Don't even put the numbers on it. Make it logarithmic. Just control for individual big customers that you have, and just tell me what your alerting volume is right now. Where that's enough signal to answer the thing that I have. This is superior to that because, Great. Now I know whether it's my Wi-Fi or whether it's the site that isn't working. Some of these services are reliable enough that if they're not working for me, my first thought is that my local internet isn't working as well as it used to. I mean, Google crossed that boundary a while back. If google.com doesn't load, it's probably your fault.
Completely agreed.
My question, without sounding rude about this, is why did this take so long to exist as a product?
When I did kind of the rounds with the team and the director of data science who kind of runs the group, he's an old friend of mine. We've been working very closely for a long time. I asked the same question. And I heard a really funny bit of history. And you can, if you Google Datadog Pokemon Go, you may find something kind of funny. Where in 2016, two engineers here at Datadog realized that Pokemon, I think they were using Pokemon, they were like playing all over, and they'd realized that there were a bunch of connectivity issues, and everyone, like people were literally like trying to swap their phones and like tap on it and like figure out if it was the phone that was wrong, the Wi-Fi that was wrong, or if Pokemon Go itself, like Niantic servers, were down. And they basically built a public Datadog dashboard that kept track of a whole bunch of health measures for the Niantic APIs. And they kind of published that. It made a splash on then Twitter. You tell me if it was before or after it turned into a dumpster full of tires on fire. And that kind of idea of like, hey, we can do this type of public service stuck with the same group. And then a couple of years later, we released Watchdog, the ML engine that does anomaly detection for us. And then came that realization that I mentioned earlier, where every time that there's a major outage with one of the cloud providers, with one of the like main SaaS providers out there, we would see load increase. And ever since then, we worked on refining the model. Like it started with data that we had, and then it moved to what type of telemetry is the best predictor. We found that if we take fairly naive approaches, it gets noisy. It gets actually really noisy. And we have so many cases where the service isn't in fact down. It's a one-off, or it's something that changed either in our or in a customer's environment that makes it look like the service is down. So we had to do a lot of refinement, and we ended up building our proprietary model to do this. So it's an actual ML model that we built homegrown, doesn't use any of the big AI providers, anything like that. It processes a massive amount of data. I think he threw out the like amount of, what petabytes of data it processes in a given time. I don't remember. And we had to build a low latency pipeline for it, because the last thing that we want is to say, oh, this thing is up in 5 minutes from it being down, only show it. So there's a bunch of these things where we started building and we're like, oh, this thing seems to work. And when it says something's down, it's mostly down, but not always. And then it's late. So it has to be high reliability. It has to be decoupled from the rest of Datadog. So if we're down, not that we're ever down. It's my favorite joke to tell in front of users, because, in a room full of SREs, you tell someone our code is perfect. We never have any issues. Everyone starts laughing.
That's why Datadog needs to be a provider on this. And that doesn't need to be a graph. That could just be a static image.
There we go. We're also working on that. You should know we try to be fairly transparent. Not topic of today's conversation. We have a FinOps tool, Datadog Cloud Cost Management. We put Datadog cost on there by default at no additional charge. So like we do try to make sure that we accept our place in the ecosystem in that way, or try to be humble about our place in the ecosystem.
Oh, yeah. The part of the challenge, too, is that I would argue, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, I don't see Datadog taking an outage as being a critical path issue, by which I mean, if you folks go down dark globally, no one's website should stop working because, our telemetry provider is not working, therefore we're going to just block on I/O, or it's going to take us down. Sure, they're going to have no idea what their site is doing or if their site is up at all, but you're a second order effect. You're not critical path.
That is very correct. And to be fair, it's something that allows me to sleep much better at night. But I will say that there are a couple of good examples of customers who use the observability data either to gate deployments. So if you practice continuous deployment or continuous integration and you don't have observability, suddenly you need to shut down your ability to deploy code. And that may not be, hey, the website is down, but it is considered in our language Sev 1 or Sev 2 incidents, so like the worst kinds of incidents. And there are also other companies that are not e-businesses. They have real world brick and mortar or, some airlines or things like that, where if they lose observability into some parts of their system, there is a real world repercussion. And so we take our own reliability very seriously. And again, kind of adages that I've kind of heard our CTO say that have been etched in my brain. Our reliability target, it needs to be as high, so like as strict as our most strict customer. And that's how we treat it. And I will say our ops game is pretty good.
It has to be at some point. I do have, again, things that you can bike shed to death if you need to. AWS, you're monitoring 12 services. How did you pick those?
Highest popularity among our users. Like these are by far the most used AWS services among the Datadog customer base.
Fascinating. Looking at the list, there are things that I'm not entirely surprised by any of these things, with the exception of KMS. I don't love the fact that that's as popular as it is, but there are ways to use it for free. And yeah, it does feel like it's more critical path, and you're going to see more operational log noise out of it, for lack of a better term. I'm sure that right now, the biggest thing that someone at Amazon is upset about internally is that their service isn't included. I don't see Bedrock on this. Don't worry. They already have Anthropic and OpenAI's APIs on here, so they're covered there.
And again, if anyone from the AWS Bedrock team wants to come and talk to us, they know where to find us. We have good friends on the Bedrock team.
Oh, yeah. I still find it fun as well. Like there are a couple of these folks, the first one list, Aiden, Adyen. Off the top of my head, I don't know who that is or what they do. So this is a marketing story here.
Oh, interesting. Oh, well, good for the Aiden folks.
And payments, data, and financial management in one solution. Okay. Now we know. It's basically a pipeline for payments.
Yes, and I'm actually willing to bet you that you have used them. Just like Block, formerly Square. They have devices where you tap your credit card to use. I think if memory serves, they're more popular in Europe than in the US, but I've seen their devices here too.
They are a Dutch company, which would explain it. It's that useful stuff. The world is full of things that we don't use. It's weird because I'm thinking of this in the context of infrastructure providers. Like, what the hell kind of cloud provider is this? A highly specific one. Thank you for asking.
Exactly.
What do you see as coming next for this? I mean, you mentioned that there's the idea of the overall, here's what's broken, and we learn as we go on this. But if you had a magic wand, what would you make it do?
Well, the easy answer to that is what Corey said. But jokes aside, regional visibility into all the services.
The counterpoint to that is that global rolling outages are not a thing with AWS. They are frequently a thing with GCP, and with Azure, it's Tuesday. They're probably down somewhere already. Every provider implements these things somewhat differently. And then you also have the cascade effects. Like as we saw this morning, when Cloudflare goes down, a lot of API endpoints behind Cloudflare will also go down. If AWS has a bad day, so does half of the internet. There's a strong sense that this is becoming sort of a symptom of centralization, where it's not, again, reliability is far higher today than it ever has been. The difference is that we've centralized across a few providers that when they have a very bad day, it takes everyone down simultaneously, as opposed to your crappy data centers is down on Mondays and Tuesdays, and mine is down on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and that's just how the internet worked for a long time.
So I think that there's a moment of reckoning here for a lot of companies, and the cloud providers included, and many of their customers, folks who maybe never invested in reliability or resilience or disaster recovery or any flavor of being, I think resilient is probably the best word here, to any particular outage. Because to your point, while some things are more centralized, right? There are the main hyperscalers are where we're mostly centralized. A lot of things are significantly more distributed. And that distribution on the one hand means we're more resilient in the overall, in the aggregate, but it's harder to figure out what's actually broken. And so on the one hand, I would hope that a bunch of companies that are critical for their users, that have critical infrastructure up in the cloud, would remember that the internet is not actually just US East 1, as a lot of folks who consider the cloud to be, didn't realize that the cloud was mostly just US East 1, and we all learned that the hard way a couple of weeks ago, and would start to move things to other places or build redundancies. And then, maybe the negotiation here is, I'll be down, but I'll be down for not as long as the cloud provider. I can fail over safely or degrade gracefully or any of these things. a lot of nice sounding terms that we can throw at it, but that a lot of folks haven't heard or decided to not prioritize. Now is a good time.
Or they don't understand what the reality of that looks like, because you can't simulate an S3 outage. Yeah, you can block it from your app. Sure, terrific. You can't figure out how your third-party critical dependencies are going to react then. And when they all rely on each other, it becomes a very strange mess. And that's why outages at this scale are unique.
Yep, completely agreed.
I want to thank you for taking the time to walk me through the thought process behind this and how it works. If people want to learn more, where's the best place for them to find you?
updog.ai, and then after that at datadoghq.com. And if you're already a Datadog customer, I'm sure your account team knows where to find me.
You're going to regret saying that, because modulo everyone is a Datadog customer. Omri, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Omri Sass, Director of Product Management at Datadog. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and this is Screaming in the Cloud. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Whereas if you've hated this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, along with an angry, bewildered comment along the lines of, "Date a dog like Tinder for pets? That's disgusting," showing that you did not get the point.